Now let's take you to Abuja. Financial analysts have said that Nigeria's GDP growth rate of 3.84% in the fourth quarter of 2024 is a signal that the economic recovery driven mainly by services sector, forex market stability, and potential interest rate cuts is yielding results. Analysts also noted that economic expansion reflects a gradual recovery from the shocks of fuel subsidy removal and exchange rate unification. They attributed the growth to structural reforms, improved investors' confidence, and strong performances in agriculture, services, and telecommunications space, despite high inflation and borrowing costs. Let's talk to Dr. Tope Fasua. He's the special advisor to the President on Economic Affairs and the Office of the Vice President. Dr. Fasua, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming on the program this Friday afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tolu, and thanks for inviting me. Good afternoon, Nigerians.
Well, I think I should start with your reaction to these figures. Yes, a lot of commendations have come, showing that it's a sign of recovery after all of the bold reform steps taken by President Bola Tinubu. But let me ask you specifically, what do you make of this increase from 3.46% to 3.84% year-on-year growth that we've seen in Q4 2024?
Well, thank you very much. It's gladdening to the heart, and it needs to be noted that that's the highest figure, the highest growth rate that we've seen in the last 3 years of this country, this economy. Of course, we know what happened in 2000, the COVID 2001, there was a slump. We went into a recession in that year, 2020. 2021 was also a little bit, choppy for us, but we've started to recover since then. Now, these numbers that we've seen, 3.84 is the highest in the last 3 years, is gladdening to the heart, and I think it's also a result of the reforms that Mr. President has signed up to, as we've seen. Like we always say, that reforms always have a gestation period. For Nigeria, because ours is a very open economy, an economy with so much in terms of potentials, possibilities, so that's the reason why reforms take quicker to gestate in this country. We have great resources, human resources, great people who are on the go, ready to deliver, and so on. And what Nigerians needed was this kind of leadership to point direction and to insist that things be done properly. So we can see that. One thing that's also significant about that growth rate is that 95.4% of it is driven by the non-oil sector, with the oil sector contributing a mere 4.6%, meaning that we're on that trajectory of economic diversification to a very large extent. And the key contributors were, of course, indeed services, yes, contributing about 57%, as well as others coming on board as well. So, of course, we're trying to also see how we can diversify, not only away from crude oil and gas, but also away from services into the more tangible part of the economy. Of course, the industrial sector did not do badly with a 2% growth, while oil and gas did about 1.48% in that quarter. I think this is a sign of better things to come. I think that in the next couple of months, we should be seeing in the region of 4 or 5% economic growth in this economy. And this takes us back to the promises in the campaign period, what the vision of Mr. President, that look, we can run this economy, we can target a double-digit growth. Even if we don't get there, if we fall around 7%, 8%, that will mean that Nigeria is on the way to somewhere, and this is very significant. It gladdens the heart again, I must say. So 3.84, just the beginning. We should be looking at 4, 5, 6, 7% as time goes on.
Now, I look to my graph on the screen here, and I see that services sector, just like you said, is doing 57.38%, GDP growth rate entirely of 5.37%, and GDP, that's for the GDP performance for Q4 that we are talking about. Now, what do you make of the contribution from the likes of the agricultural space and the oil and gas space? What more can be done to, of course, make those sectors improve, do better than what we saw in Q4?
One thing I've always said in the realm of economics, anytime I'm asked, is that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. When we talk about diversification, indeed, we're not talking about taking our feet off the pedal in any of the sectors of the economy. So you can see the results in agriculture not doing badly. Oil and gas still not doing badly. Oil apart, in the realm of oil, crude oil, you know, a few good contracts have been signed recently. You know, I think there's an inflow of about $5 billion, some of the FIDs that have been signed. I'm also aware of another very major investment that have been done in that sector of about $350 million by a local company, an indigenous company, Green Energy, and, you know, a discovery of a new blend of crude oil, which Mr. President is going to sign up from by God's grace. You know, so we're aware of some of this development. The gas is an open sesame on its own. There's so much, given that the gas is what's called a transition fuel, even in the realm of climate change and what have you. We haven't even started to do so much in the gas sector, which is going to happen pretty soon because Mr. President is very bullish on gas. So that's that. The agri sector is also not doing badly. We've seen the activities of the Minister of Agri, you know, new ideas coming into that sector, about 50,000 new hectares of wheat to be opened so that we become less dependent on what happens in Russia and Ukraine and what have you. You know, perhaps even positioning as a supplier in the region. I think what's going on, people will also admit to you that, look, the security situation seems to be a lot better. And when the security is better, both the oil and gas sector, and the agri sector are going to benefit. So I think we've put our feet on something. Now, the two key reforms that Mr. President did when he came, on Naira and also on petroleum subsidy, are yielding results because now you can see the fact the states are sharing triple what they used to share. Just yesterday or so we had the numbers, 1.7 trillion that the states and federal and local had to share. Mr. President has also brought innovation into the local government sector by ensuring that they begin to get some of their monies directly. And I've always repeated that the next spike of growth that we would see in this country, in this economy, is probably going to come from that rural sector. A lot needs to be done. Some of them have been neglected for too long. Now, with good monitoring and evaluation, and also when the NBS is quick on its feet, we're going to be able to measure the growth that will come from the rural areas, especially in terms of rural infrastructure. So the states have so much money now to fulfill their obligations in terms of salaries, pensions, and what have you, but also to embark on the provision of local infrastructure en masse. I believe that this country may be very soon seeing an explosion of infrastructure, which will also lift the economy, and that's how we're going to be able to target the double-digit growth and, you know, perhaps even give the $1 trillion target for the economy a good shot.
Let me ask you this. Considering the rebased inflation figures that we've seen, we saw in January inflation down to about 24%, around about that. And we also expect a rebased GDP anytime from now. Considering all the sectors that will be factored in moving forward, CBN, MPC have also halted either an increase, there was just a retention at the last meeting. Now, it's like a two-in-one question. What are your expectations? Of course, the next MPC meeting and the expected figures from the NBS. Okay,
now everything adds up together. We know where inflation is still at 34%, but with the, of course, now rebased to 24.8%.
Yeah.
But with that going on now, with this MPC holding its rates, chances are that I expect that the MPC may hold its rates once more before beginning to take a downward, downward trajectory on the monetary policy rate, which also is meant to dictate what the banks do in terms, especially in terms of lending rate. Just yesterday, I was looking at the published schedule of the central bank regarding the rates submitted by most of the, all the banks, indeed. And I could see that some of the banks, especially on things like agri lending, were already beginning to report 23%, 25%. But when you go to commercial lending, that's when you see the high rate, 38%, 35, 36%, you know. But when you come to those industries, real industries, we're beginning to trend towards 27%, 28%. That was published in some of the newspapers just yesterday or 2 days ago. So I think, again, you know, of course, lower inflation will also lead to higher economic growth, because the economic growth that's reported is adjusted for inflation. So I think we'll be, and then I think something very significant has also been happening. That even though we're in the Ramadan season, we've been seeing across the board a reduction in the price of food. I go out myself to do some of my own personal surveys directly in the market, and I can tell you that the price of things like beans is going down, has crashed significantly, tomatoes and what have you. Even rice now is beginning to get the effect, perhaps the effect of the importation that was done. There was, you know, concessionary importation that was done recently. So surprisingly, people are wondering, look, in the Ramadan season, sometimes food price will increase, but now we're seeing a consistent reduction in the price of food. So if the price of food will reduce, that means it will have a positive effect on inflation, with inflation coming down below the 24.8% that has been reported as per the rebased inflation. Of course, nobody is claiming that inflation suddenly fell by 10%. We're saying that we have recalibrated and we're starting afresh, using a new base year, starting afresh to say the real inflation that we have right now is 24.8%. So if inflation is likely to trend down, that means you should expect the monetary policy rate to also trend down, because monetary policy rate is meant to be targeted at managing inflation. Of course, what we are also seeing now is that in terms of managing inflation, we can't use a singular approach. So one of the things to do is to decombobulate inflation and actually look for where is inflation coming from. Of course, you know, food is the major contributor. Transportation, I've seen some of the states, even Plateau State and so many other states around the country, that are doing innovative things around transportation to make the lives of their people easier. Lagos State is a very great example as well, with 2 train lines already functioning. The red line, the blue line, the purple line, the green line are already in place, and people are trying to, the government is trying to make sure that these networks go to make the lives of their people easier. Now, whereas there will never be an end to the challenges that the government will face, but I believe that what we have seen so far is that under this government, things are beginning to turn the corner, and I think that I see a great hope in the horizon, in the very short horizon. And I can always say to people, please position yourself to benefit from the goodies of this country, rather than sit down and criticize every time or have a negative view. The thing about, now that we live on the internet, almost all of us, the more negativity you ask for to see, the more the internet pushes to you. And the more positivism about this country that you want to see, the more the internet pushes to you. It makes whatever it is you're looking for, it gives you more of it. So I think that if you look at the agri sector doing great, the oil sector doing great, security sector doing a lot better, the telecoms, where they complain about their tariffs and all of that, the people are saying that, look, let's see how we can balance this out, and so on. The president has increased minimum wage to 70,000. A lot of the states are doing 80,000, 83,000, very magnanimously. They started to pay. They would not have been able to do that if the president had not done the kind of reforms that he insisted on doing. And I say he's the chief driver of these reforms. Even when some of us get scared, he pushes ahead and says, listen, this is what we want to achieve. It's great vision. And I think that the entire country will benefit from this in due course. Depends on how we position for this. Nigeria is a great country. The economy has great opportunities for everybody. We don't have to let foreigners come and dictate to us what to do. We understand, the vision of our country ourselves, and we can make this happen.
I must thank you so much. An interesting conversation, as always, with you, Dr. Tope Fasua, Special Advisor to the President on Economic Affairs, Office of the Vice President. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll have you in again, of course, to assess all of these policy initiatives and where we're headed. Thank you, and enjoy your weekend again.